The midterm budget debate has opened in the House of Assembly with a strong rebuke of the practices of the previous administration. Good evening, everyone. I'm LaDawn Davis. Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, the Honorable Peter Turnquest, while giving an account of the country's economic state of affairs, says the debt-to-GDP ratio is in dangerous territory and many unmet contract commitments continue to hinder progress. But he says there is a bright light. Keishla Adderley was in Parliament this morning and leads us off tonight.
The midterm budget presentation began with a resolution to borrow $100 million to satisfy commitments made to resolve Bahamas to bail out the Bank of the Bahamas. This against the backdrop of $100 million in borrowing this year alone. Finance Minister Peter Turnquest told Parliament today that unpaid commitments by the previous administration to the order of $200 million are a major setback.
It is claimed that the former government committed $18 million to support the printing of the Bahamas Handbook and the in-room tourist guides, but it only paid $500,000 towards that bill. Wow. The former administration did not put this work out to contract, nor send it to Cabinet for approval. It is now left to our government to sort this matter out and investigate the $17.5 million that is supposedly still owed. Despite all the hoopla around the Bahamas Junkanoo Carnival Festival, the Ministry of Finance had engaged an accounting company which had not been paid through the resources of the Carnival Festival and which had been holding on to bills from last year. So the money that went to Carnival, 14 million I think it was, 19 million at the end I believe. 21, I'm corrected. Still didn't pay the accounting firm.
Handcuffed, as he put it, to contracts like building leases which were never engaged, Minister Turnquest chided the previous administration's unabated borrowing amidst new revenue.
In 2016-17 year, the election year, VAT revenue increased again by $81 million. But expenditure, the discretionary expenditure, rose by a whopping $268 million. You tell me how that's supposed to work. How that's supposed to work? Hurricane, you say hurricane, let me give you $150 million. I can give you $150 million. Spot you that. You still got $100 million, $120 million to explain. And you didn't spend $150 because we still paying some of them bills today. We paying them today.
Additionally, Turnquest noted that the government debt mushroomed from $3.9 billion in the period 2011-2012 to more than $6.6 billion in the year 2016-2017, an increase of $2.6 billion over 5 years. That's $529 million each year. Turnquest says the government is also struggling with a debt-to-GDP ratio poised to reach dangerous levels if something isn't done.
Indeed, simple extrapolations with a basic debt dynamic model, as is widely used internationally, reveals that with the primary deficit of 3.3% of GDP that we inherited, the ratio of government debt to GDP would rise continuously from its level of 57.6% in 2016-17, using our Department of Statistics revised GDP figures published late last year, to over 100% of GDP in only 9 short years.
On the bright side, Mr. Turnquest says the IMF has some good news for the future with this forecast.
The IMF has marked up its forecast for economic growth in the Bahamas. Real growth in 2018 is now forecasted at 2.5%, up from 2.2% at the time of the last budget. For 2019, the forecast called for growth on the order of 2.2%. This outlook reflects projected modest growth in tourism sector output, thank you, Minister, due in part to the sustained improvement in key sector markets, source markets, and in light of the multi-billion Baha Mar resort becoming fully operational.
This, Turnquest says, should mean good news for employment and a spike in construction due to foreign investment projects in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and the Family Islands. Keishla Adderley, ZNS Network News.